guess I'm the only one that sees this mountain of laundry.
Say something?
Or the fact that we haven't even had a real conversation in like 3 days.
I asked you if you wanted burgers or tacos the other day.
Oh, right. Clearly, we're doing great.
You know, matter of fact, I need to go blow those leaves in the attic. They've been piling up in there.
In all seriousness, though, ever notice that most of our issues have nothing to do with the pile of laundry that needs to be done, or
The leaves that stack up in the attic.
let's talk about core issues.
There was a guy actually on Shark Tank. That's one of my guilty pleasures is watch Shark Tank. And he actually would sell it was on Amazon or somewhere, it was a gag gift, but it was a bag of leaves you could go dump in the attic for husbands if they needed to get out of a situation. Like, sorry, there's some leaves in the attic I've been needing to get to, so they go up there and clean them out. And he made hundreds of thousands of dollars off this like basically Ziploc bag with leaves in it. And so it cracked me up.
Whenever we decided to increase the humans in our house, the concept of laundry had not crossed my mind. And so laundry has become, it has become a core issue for me. Not really. But the issue of feeling like just being overwhelmed, feeling unseen, that started to kind of send us down a spiral of me wanting to get out of the house, me avoiding wanting to be mom, me avoiding the kids, actually forming resentment towards the kids and towards my husband. And it wasn't the laundry, but it was a lie that I believed that I wasn't valued and that I wasn't being valued. And so when we go into this session, identifying and addressing core issues, this actually came from Kairos. And Kairos was the ministry that we had started to tell you guys about at the very beginning. And they provided an outlet for couples, individuals, to start to kind of go introspective and understand, why do you get angry in these types of situations? Why are you reactive? Why do you become an introvert all of a sudden? What are your mannerisms and where do those come from? And I have to be honest with y'all, this was the workshop, whenever we first started breaking things down of what we were going to discuss at this intensive, this particular workshop,
Session and workshop,
kind of gripped me because I'm still actively working these things out. I don't have this figured out. And I asked 5 other couples to cover this particular topic, and all 5 of them, it wasn't because they didn't want to, they just really felt like they weren't supposed to. And so I started arguing with the Lord and was like, I'm not supposed to do this because I don't have this together. How am I about to teach or try to facilitate a conversation with someone when I don't have this together at all? And the Lord was like, and that's when he said, are you going to trust me, or are you going to trust your ability to get through this? So I say all that with complete transparency. I am still acting through this and working through these kinds of core issues because these are real. And we discovered that through Kairos, core issues come from upbringing. They come from people that have spoken into you at foundational, pivotal moments of your life along the way. In the timeline of your lifespan, there have been pivotal moments. There have been times where you have seen things, you have caught things, you have discovered things. And if those aren't submitted to the Lord, they become a core issue, or they become what we call in Christianese an inner vow. And for me, and this, I know this is kind of off script, but for me, I have impeccable parents. My parents are phenomenal. They are incredible people. And they raised me the best that they knew how with their upbringing, right? And, 2 generations ago, parents were very much detached from their kids. And it was, you will do it this way. If you don't do it this way, then I have nothing to do with you. And children were really better seen and not heard. At a very young age, I say young age, I was 11. I was in 6th grade, about to go into 6th grade. And I remember a moment, and if my dad sees this, he'll laugh at it because I bring it up to him whenever he starts to do his mannerism that sent me down this downward spiral in my adult life, thinking that I'm a horrible mathematician. But I remember sitting at the table, and I could not understand algebra. To this day, I just got chills on my arm. The word algebra just brought so much fear. And I remember a very specific moment at the table doing homework for 6th grade math, algebra, and I was trying to understand this math problem, and my dad, to the best of his ability, was trying to teach me. In his frustration and in my limited ability to communicate what I didn't understand, he said the words, "You just don't get it," and walked off. In that moment, I took that, not because of him, but because I was vulnerable. I was vulnerable. I was a kid. But in that moment, I immediately developed the core issue, "You're dumb." Did my dad say those words? No, he just said he was frustrated because he knew that I could get it, but I didn't know how to communicate that I don't understand the words that are coming out of your mouth. But in that moment, there was a core issue that developed in me that took literal years of walking away from different career paths because I didn't think that I was good at math. And I know that sounds very elementary, but it also led into, I'm not good enough. I can't do it. I'm not going to be able to finish it. Whatever it may be, it was a feeling of inadequacy. And to be honest, that's why this is very difficult for me, because I'm still working through it. I still don't feel like I meet that mark. And it's not a matter of the accolades. It's not a matter of, oh, you're so great, you're so busy, you're doing all these amazing things. It's not that. There was a core issue that the Lord still has to work out of me. So core issues, they can be from your childhood. They can be from yesterday. But that's why...
It could be from before lunch.
Yeah, it could be from before lunch. What Siri said about what is spoken and how your communication is right here is so invaluable to how you maneuver and manage life in every aspect.
There's a point I want to make on that, then we'll get started in this too. And grant me a little bit of latitude on this, and I'll bring the plane back around. I don't know how many of y'all, but I haven't seen very many like fiery furnaces around Angleton, right? Like giant pits that throw people in that's on fire, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And it talked about worshiping even in the fire. This is a modern version of worshiping in the fire. When you walk out on that limb that you're not comfortable with, and you know you're vulnerable in, but you're trusting that God is gentle enough that he's going to walk you through it and catch you if you fall, that's the same faith. I was sharing with somebody last night this story from Hillsong Empire's video. And that, I'm not a musician. Obviously, my wife is. I do numbers. I am.
That
the
was actually another
mathematician.
core issue in our marriage. I was like, this man is not made for me. He is not a musician. If you know me, I love music. But I was like, this is not going to work. If we're going to be in church together, he has to be on the ministry team. He has to be on the worship team with me. He has to do something in music. And for a long time, I was like, he's just so different. He's an introvert. I'm an extrovert. He would rather be at home alone. I have to be away from the house. Get me away from the house. That was yet another core issue. I decided in my mind when I was a kid, I will never stay home. I have to be out of this house. And I've carried that over to one of my twins. She's actually said those words, and she's 4. That's why I say, this is very vulnerable for me, because I'm still learning to actively worship and still learning to actively pursue the Lord in something that I still don't have a grasp on. And it's something simple.
And back to the Hillsong Empires documentary, and not talking about the fall, I'm just talking about the scene. They wrote this song called Empires, and they had a whole tour. The way that they functioned is they basically took a month out, they rented a houses in California, came from Australia, wasn't it? And they would write an album. The musicians would write the whole album, and lyrics would write the lyrics. Then they would do a tour to kick off the album. The point of it being, they're talking about the headline song of the album was called Empires. And the Lord gave them the melody and the song, but never gave them the lyrics. They're going to the Staples Center, sold out. They still don't have the lyrics. They do their warm-up and they sing the song, and when they do the warm-up, they're playing the instruments, and the singers are just going, like they don't know what the words are going to be.
I mean, and in the background you can see, so Joel Houston was the guy that wrote,
from a non-musician.
Oh, from a non-musician, sorry. Okay.
So Joel, the lyricist, is actually writing the song 5 minutes before they went out to start the concert. The musician's already out there. Like, the people are already out there. Joel's in the back, and they actually delay part of it because he writes the lyrics of the song in front of 100-something thousand people. They have lyrics, reading the lyrics into their ears, singing them for the first time on stage in front of all those people. They went out there and started the song not knowing what the words were going to be. As a musician,
they walk you through. If you have a chance,
sentence.
go back and see that movie, because it really is incredible. But for a musician, okay, whenever we had the 2 churches here, we had Vida and Life, I had the opportunity to worship with Lisa Montalegre. And we would joke about it, but she would, if the words weren't on the screen, Lisa just went off and would start making up her own words to the song. And it was perfect. It was literally perfect. But for someone that is just learning, okay, and learning how to sing with, the click track and all those things, if you're not able to see those words, you don't know what to do. And so for them as musicians to see, they are literally getting the lyrics fed to them in the in-ear monitor.
Somebody's talking to them.
Someone's talking to them and telling them the words, not the melody. Because remember, in the movie, they show that they've been practicing the melody, but then the behind the scenes, we're giving them the lyrics to the song.
But that's, to me, that was the Lord stopped me. He speaks to me through movies and stuff, and he stopped me, and he's like, that's like a modern day fiery furnace, because you're literally putting your entire career on the line as a musician. Right? And you're walking out there and you're like, Lord, you told me to do this. You will carry me through. And that same principle is applied through this. You may be the first person in your family that's actually trying to have a marriage succeed. And you may not know what that looks like. But the fact that you're here looking is that step of faith. Keep walking in it. And that was an 18-minute intro. That was supposed to be 5, but we'll get going. So the point of why we get to these and why they're so critical to get to core issues. We had a rental property in Freeport that I had, and we had a lot of challenges with this house. And
challenges is an understatement.
The Lord told us to buy it and redeem it. There was a lot of issues going on in the house, spiritually, physically, and spiritually, like there was spiritual warfare in the house that was used for a lot of demonic stuff. And then physically, there was this, you walked in the house, it was rotted out. You just fell on the floor, like fell 4 foot through the house to the floor. And we had to pick the whole house up, rebuild it from the ground up, set it back down. Anyways, the point being on it, we constantly had shifting, and we had foundation issues. Well, we had door issues first. Doors wouldn't close, doors wouldn't stay shut, doors wouldn't lock. Then we started having cracks showing up again. We had the whole house re-leveled. We literally built the whole foundation and set the house back down on it. Come to find out, after a couple years of it slowly shifting and sagging, what we found out is the way the water was running off the roof from an addition, it was channeling a whole part to this one section. The water was coming down, hitting a rock, going back under the house, and it was basically eroding 3 of the pillars, the pilings for the foundation. And it happened to be right where the kitchen was, where all the granite was, so which was causing excessive weight, which was sagging the entire house down. This 2-3 foot section, probably if you look at this rug, this big of a section, was literally pulling down the whole rest of the house. And until we got the right people in there that understood, I could look at it all day long and everything looked okay. But until we got the right people in there with the right tools and everything else, and then got under the house, we figured out exactly what was happening. They figured out in probably 30, 45 minutes. We shimmed it, pressed it down, put some more pilings and piers in it, and leveled it, and then everything was good. The doors started working. But the other problem that we were having, besides the fact that it was pulling the whole house down and starting to affect everything else, plumbing, electrical, like everything was getting strained because this whole section was sagging, right? Because the house was an L, and it was right where the center of the L, so it was pulling both sides of the house. Roof was almost starting to crack, the boards on the roof. We had some very, very handy tenants that were in there, and they were shaving the doors. So as the house kept getting saggy, they were shaving the doors so the doors would level back out. Well, guess what happened when the house got fixed? Our doors had gaps, right? Same thing happens in your marriage. When you have a core issue and you keep compensating for it year after year after year after year, when you do go to fix it, you're going to have gaps. There's got to be grace going in and grace coming out. Because the door swings when it's perfectly balanced. It functions the way it should. When it gets out of kilter, you can cut the bottom, shim the top, put spacers in, shim the other side so you can still get the latch to go. So it still functions. Your marriage can still function. But is that how it's designed? Then when you square it up and you get it plumb and it's back square again, now your marriage looks off kilter. I share with you this because as you learn these topics and you learn how to address these, it's gonna feel abnormal. It's gonna feel like you're off kilter. And you are off kilter because your compass wasn't centered north to Christ. When you recenter your compass, you don't feel like you're going the right direction. It's like a pilot whenever they get in the, I forget what it's called, Annie could have told me. Basically when they get so spun around, they don't know what's up and down and they're in the clouds. They can't tell if they're going up, down, right, left, whatever. And their natural, there's actually a phenomenon, he told me what it was, but you'll actually feel like you're falling, but you're actually climbing. And so if you react and pull the other way, and it's the thing they think happened with Kobe's helicopter pilot, there's a thing that happens to the pilot. You actually feel like you're falling, like the plane's falling, but in reality it's flying straight up. And then you flip and you compensate and you actually dive the plane straight into the ground. And the same thing starts happening when you start reorienting your marriage. Because things that you had working or functioning contractually, when you start getting into the covenant, they feel like they're spinning. And it's gonna feel a little chaotic before it starts riding back out, because you gotta have a little bit of that chaos. So the purpose of this though is to understand what are the things that are pulling, areas that may be pulling down in our marriage that we're having to compensate for. When that happened at the house, the cabinet doors in the kitchen started not lining up right. They may be just swung, they wouldn't fully close, put little latches on them so now they stay hung, right? In the laundry case, maybe I just started folding all the laundry so Megan wouldn't see it. Maybe I just closed the doors so she wouldn't see it, so I could try to keep her at the house. Maybe I take the keys so she can't leave.
He's never done that, by the way.
I haven't.
That's a little much, but
the point is, you compensate in your marriage for things that have an issue, right? You're fighting on, let's say, frequent arguments. You're emotionally disconnected. Let's just go with finances because we're going to cover that in a minute. You just don't talk about it.
Let me just tell you. Sorry. The first. When did you give me the? When did you tell me to cover the finances? Like when we first started.
About 2/3. It may have been just after the first year.
He asked me to take care of the finances.
She didn't know how to manage money, so I was like, you need to learn. Here you go.
No, I didn't know how to manage money. I didn't understand what stewardship was.
Right.
And I allowed money to be my drug. Going to the grocery store for me was a high. Putting gas in the car was a high. The enemy's not gonna get me with alcohol. He's not gonna get me with weed. He's not gonna get me with pornography. Definitely not gonna get me with other men. But he can get me with spending. And so for me, that was the core issue, was I have to have everything, and when I don't get it, I will find a way to make it. I'm very impulsive. And so money for us became a major issue.
And that's where I remember earlier when I said, if there's something in your house you don't like, it starts with you. So I started dealing with this. And the way I started dealing with it, think about Serious Triangle, Drew. I started going to the Father to deal with Megan, but when I went to the Father, I never looked for the opportunities to practically and tactically work with my wife to help bolster that area. I basically said, here, God, she's your daughter. She's screwed up over here. You go fix it and let me know when you're done.
It was kind of like when Siri talked about, I'm in the car, I'll worship whenever I want to. If you want, you can meet me there.
Right.
It was kind of like, here she is. I'm praying for her. Like, I'm speaking for you. I'm praying for her. Help me figure it out, and then just move on with the day.
It's like, go fix her and bring it back to me when you're done, and then we'll keep moving.
And then
'cause I know how to do this.
I thought by fixing it, I'll just ask for an allowance. Just give me an allowance. Y'all want to know what my allowance was? Go ahead.
The one that you asked for?
Yeah, the one that I asked for.
No,
I thought it was reasonable.
You should share what you thought was reasonable.
I thought $500 a month was reasonable.
For blow money to do whatever.
For blow money
On
to do
top of
whatever I
normal-
wanted, no questions asked. Or the way that my mother would say it, give me $500 without you asking where it goes. I take it where I want to. I go when I want to. That's what I heard. I thought that was normal. I was like, that sounds like a pretty good deal. I don't have to worry about money. I can spend it wherever I want. You don't ask questions. I get the makeup I want. I get the shoes. I can spend it on Amazon. Nobody knows. Where's the lie in that? I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just here by myself. Okay, like I said, I'll figure it out.
The issue, though, was that as we started working through, I was like, Lord, she's beyond help on some of this stuff. At one point, I actually showed her mathematically with what she was wanting, like what was necessary, and then her blow money that she wanted. I was like, I can go, what did I pick? It was a Challenger. I was like, I can go buy a Challenger, pay for the insurance, and pay for the gas on what you're spending on blow money. And she's like, that's fine, go. It's like, it doesn't work that way.
Because I saw what was coming in, that was a whole nother issue. Remember the whole math thing? It's pretty close to the truth, almost, except that my husband trained me and taught me what you see in the bank account isn't actually what we have, because that's allotted to something else.
Bills.
Yeah. Which, Dave and Kristen, I can't wait for y'all to hear them. It's freedom. Bless the Lord. Okay.
So, the part we had to go to is you actually had to find the core, the root issue. The root issue as we worked through it was identity and security. She found her identity in what she could purchase and what she could do, and it wasn't bad things.
It was great things.
There was a period at one point where she was spending her entire paycheck on like other people and taking them out to do things. It wasn't bad stuff, right?
Like I said, actively still doing it.
Yeah.
Working through it. Still working
But
through.
the point of it being, though, that was a hard conversation that had to happen or needed to happen, but I just avoided it because I knew it was a landmine. And I was like, Lord, you go deal with her. I'm going to sit over here and just keep working. But that led to almost 7-8 years of issues. And I'm like, Lord, TikTok, baby. Like, TikTok, what are we doing? And he's like, what are you doing? And the hard part is, in my mind, I had spiritualized it, that I'm saving my marriage by not having these other fights, and I'm praying for my wife. But I was literally throwing my wife over the fence and saying, metaphorically, and being like, here, fit it to the wolves, figure it out, and if you make it back over, we'll keep going. Then I kept not listening. So I'm walking you through this so it doesn't look like I'm picking on my wife.
Oh, go ahead.
This is how amazing the Lord is. And we're just basically completely off script at this point, but I feel like we're supposed to walk down this, so we will.
Well, it comes in.
The
Never mind. We're good.
So we're going through it, and we've been having these core issues, working through them, and there's months and years maybe where it's better, then it's worse, better than worse. Then last January, right when the Lord had called us us to switch careers, her to come out of teaching and do something else, and actually do my dream, which was the Lord. He told me whenever I was writing my letter in the sanctuary, he said, y'all gonna be hand to mouth and you're gonna be on the verge of bankruptcy this year. Do you trust me? That was terrifying. And he said, and I'm jumping way ahead to tomorrow, but he said, where I want to take y'all, I have to break things off before I can get you there. And I can't break them off, or you have to deal with them, and I can't break them off of you without you trying to start working on them. And at this point, I'm gonna have to chisel them off of you. Guys, in the span of 4 months, we had tens of thousands of dollars just disappear. Stolen, accounts hacked, all kinds of craziness. We had three houses and 2 cars almost get repoed because I got called that somehow they had gone back and reverted and taken 4 months of payments on all of them. So it showed like we were current, and then all of a sudden we were 4 months behind on rental houses, primary, and our cars.
He came in one day. Granted, what was my core issue?
Security and finances.
So he comes in. I'm at the breaking point. This is last April.
Yeah.
I had just got my license. I thought we were licensed for real estate, not driving. Should have. But clarify.
There's your math license.
So literally, this time last year, Michael came in. I was on cloud 9. I was excited, looking forward to doing what God's called me to do. And he said, babe, I think we're going to have to foreclose on the house. What? I mean, that made the Rise and Grind ticket that I just spent for like $10 on a coffee look real good whenever he said that. What do you do?
We had lost a third of our income when she had swapped guaranteed income, and then everything basically got wiped. The ledgers got wiped, which is a whole nother session in itself. Between 4 different banks, all of them. They still don't know how it happened. And I was like, if something doesn't change by July, we literally will be done. And I said, but the Lord told me in January, and I told her when my letter gets here in May, you'll see it. You're going to go be on the verge of bankruptcy, and you're going to be hand to mouth until you get this. Do you trust me? And I told her, and she's like, okay. So we started a plan. In the 7, 8 years that I've completely given her, I kicked over all the finances and everything to her, just said, figure it out, sink or swim. Honest to goodness, and I'm saying this in the recording, well, it's whatever. I don't think I looked at a single one of our bank accounts for almost 9 years because it would cause a fight. I said, Lord, you've given us more than we deserve. And you keep covering our shortcomings. Work on your daughter. That's literally what I'd say. I'm being transparent with you, but in reality, I had my own issues in my own heart. So the Lord took the same instance, the same core issue, the same event, was drilling out one of the deepest cores of my wife, but then was also drilling out a core issue of myself. He's like, you don't provide for your family. You think you got this all figured out. You think you're doing great because of this, this, and this. It's all gone like this. Who sustains you? I was like, you. And until that moment, it had been head knowledge, then it was heart knowledge. But that chiseled so much off. He chiseled more off in 2 or 3 months than the last 14 years of marriage. Because I was willing to listen to what the issues were. Y'all know what is also not a coincidence? You know what we started 2 weeks before all this happened? The marriage podcast. We were at a marriage conference over at Grace on I-45. And we were sitting between one of the sessions like we just had, and we were sitting in one of the pews while they went to lunch. And I said, what's something that I've failed you on, babe? And she said, I told you 8 years ago I wanted to do a marriage conference at our church, and you never helped me do it. I said, I'll fix it. Where are you sitting? We're being real, guys. And in that time frame, this same week, you don't think the enemy's not going to come like the drawing? The deeper the pit, the darker the pit, the brighter the testimony. Some of y'all we've sat and talked to and told you that very thing. When you feel like it's past repair, it is beyond repair. That just means it's going to be that stronger of a testimony because there is no other answer but God. Nobody I didn't know, nobody can explain to me, even being a mathematician, nobody can explain to me how, frankly, we made it 14 months, catching up on everything. And last month, I think we caught up, well, we're one half payment on one car behind from being current. Caught up 3 notes on houses, one with tenants in it who lost their job and they couldn't pay us. Another sidebar. You think you want to jump down their throat? Because now you don't have any ways, your whole emergency fund's gone. They can't pay a note. They're in a worse spot than you, right? Because they're struggling to even rent. Remember the story about the guy who owed the ruler a year's worth of payments and the other guy owed him a few days? You don't think that thought creeped in my mind about evicting? The Lord say, this is going to be a monument of how we handle what's happening with you. Grace. She was unemployed for 6 months. And then going into the holidays, the week before Christmas, she called me and she had all the back payments and brought them to me. What you do, how you treat others, how you have the viewpoint, if you're willing to let the Lord dig into these core issues, and how you reflect it here, ripples out. I had that conversation with them, those renters. Changed their entire perspective. They were so thankful that we didn't kick them out. They had 4 kids with them now? 5 kids with them now. Having that conversation. We had every other rights, but so did God. Showed us grace, we show them grace. Same thing in your marriage. There was so many times during that walk that she could have jumped down my throat and been like, why didn't you manage this better? There was a couple of times we had weak moments, right? I'd be like, why did you spend so much? She's like, why don't you just go make more money? This is the real conversations.
I actually started door dashing.
We door dashed for our date nights because we didn't want to compromise on our date nights. So we started door dashing to pay for our date night. 100% transparency. Because we're like, we can't compromise on our marriage. So we started door dashing for our date nights. We had $250 nights. Dude, it was the funnest date nights we had. We go get a Little Caesars pizza, and you know what? We would try to figure out what these people were going to do with this food, like what they were doing. It's almost random order. We went to one guy's house over there by the hospital. Dude was high as a kite. Had ordered something from Sonic. It was like a peanut butter and chocolate milkshake.
No, it was chocolate and banana.
And Megan's like, you out ordered. She's like,
it was
kudos.
chocolate, banana,
She's
and
like, kudos.
chili corn dog with extra jalapenos at like 11:30 at night.
And Megan was like,
but
kudos,
it was a real
sir.
Banana milkshake with chocolate.
She's like, I respect your order. Kudos, sir. And he's like, thanks, man.
It was amazing.
But we had a Little Caesars cheese pizza. We'd drive around and we'd pray for every person because you have their name and you have their order. And we pray for every person as we're driving and dropping them off. So if you tell me you can't do a date night, you can. It doesn't have to be glamorous. It doesn't have to be big. We weren't compromising on certain things. When you deal with core issues, there's things you can compromise on. For money, money comes and goes. I still don't fight. I won't fight with her when we make a mistake, and she won't fight with me, but we'll have a very direct conversation. Because it's something that we've been entrusted to steward. And just like if I was at work and the people that I help manage, if they mismanage something, I'd have to have a conversation with them. But We have the conversations with ourselves. We don't answer, but we have them with ourselves. And then we have them with each other to make sure we're holding each other accountable. But how do we identify them? We talked about it. Frequent arguments, extreme disconnect, anything that's like a no-fly zone needs to be a fly zone. Because what did Ann say? Ugly things grow in the dark. When there's any area of your marriage you're not willing to talk about, you need to go there to figure out what's there. And you got to go there gently. You're not going in there like Rambo, kicking down the door and just spraying and praying, right? You're not going to go research ChatGPT 100 verses to fix my wife's spending habits and then go leave it on her desk. No, that's passive aggressive.
Not gonna lie, I've tried that.
She's tried that with me.
But it's not a note, it's a text message.
The point of it is, though, you identify them through issues, things that you just dread having the conversation about. Could be parenting a kid. Could be talking about a health issue. Could be talking about intimacy. Could be a word that they said. Somebody put me, like if a spouse put another spouse down in a social situation, and it really bothered them, was degrading the way you talk to her. I remember one time Megan told me, she's like, it's not what you say, it's how you say, because the way that you talk to me makes it sound like you're being degrading to me. So then I had to slow down. And there was one time she came home and it had been a really rough week and at work. And I was explaining it to her, then my frustration about work bled over into our day-to-day life. And she very politely stopped me and said, Mike, I need you to stop. I said, what's up? She goes, I'm not one of your employees. I said, you're right. You're my partner. And there's times when she was teaching, I'm like, I'm not your student. You can ask me to do something, you can tell me to do something, but don't ask me and then tell me how to do it. And it was a feedback that we needed in a form of communication, because it was like saying, if I don't think you're competent enough to figure this out, so I'll just go ahead and take care of it for you. It's like, if you have a specific way you want to get done, I'm all ears, because it's less I have to think about, right? But if you're going to ask me to do something, let me go do it. Then don't come back and try to insult me. And to me, it was an insult to then tell me I didn't do it right, like I'm incompetent.
Let me explain something very simple, and then hopefully this brings some comedic relief. Everybody's heard about the towel, the folding the towel. I have done that. I was raised that you're supposed to fold the towel in 3 ways. It folds 1, 2, 3. So that you see the lines and the layers in the towel. That's how I was taught. So my husband was not given that foundation. And
spiritual truth.
I remember, but here was the thing. I was already frustrated. I was already frustrated with the condition of the house. I knew that we had a deadline that we had to meet because we were having a get together at the house, and I want people to think that we live there, but not that we live there. I want people to think that
that's our address, but we don't live there.
Yeah. I want people to actually think that they really keep their house clean with 4 children, and 2 full-time jobs and anything else. But so I have this in my head, my house has to look a certain way for people to accept me, or for people to like me, or for people to want to come over. Core issue. So I was frustrated, and he folded the towel twice. He folded it double. Horrible. It's horrible. It's ugly. You can see the fringe on the edges of the towel. So I wouldn't want to use it. If I saw that towel, I would not want to use it. Anyway, so the laundry had just come out. It's clean laundry, and he's doing his due diligence and folding it. I kid you not, I walked over as he was grabbing another towel, and I said, look at it. Look at it. And I told him, I was like, can you not just take the time to do it the way that I showed you?
Well, I think you actually said, how can you run the chemical plant, but you can't fold a towel? That was exactly what you said.
Those are the words that I said, but the intent of what I was saying was what I said. But I mean, how rude. What did I say?
He said, how in the world can you run that chemical plant, but you can't figure out how to run it, fold
That's
a towel?
exactly what I said.
Yeah.
So rude. It's terrible. But what I was trying to say was, how can you, did you not like see the way that I taught you and took the time to teach you? But folding the towel, miscommunication,
But
meeting expectations.
the point of that one came back to, that was a funny night, actually.
We made up. It was fine. We made up. It was good. It was great. We laughed about it later.
So I do trifold the towels because it says be as far as you can, be at peace with everyone. But when it is a long day, I'm not gonna lie, I may roll one or two and just stick them in there and be like.
But when your
for a little
4-year-old
secret.
daughter, but when the 4-year-old, okay, if y'all ever see the blonde one, that's the one that I'm talking about. She's gonna run the country one day. But Selah was like, Daddy, Mommy showed you how, do it like this. We left it at that.
Yeah, that day actually too, whenever she's like, what if when the people come over, they don't want to use the towels because they're folded like da-da-da. They're not trifold, they're square. They're like da-da-da. I'm like, if they don't like my towel because it's da-da-da, tell them to leave. I was like, if they're that bent out of shape about towels, get out.
Okay.
You're eating my food anyways.
The whole point of that was an unmet expectation, right?
So, but the point of it though was fear and insecurity of how she'd be perceived. In me, it was treat me as if I was incompetent. I was like, I know I'm not incompetent. Like, don't insult me. Which feeds into pride, right? Which then it's like, then, you know, that same week, do we own a lawnmower? Like, yeah, it's right there. You can get your butt out there and mow it
You guys,
yourself.
last Sunday, if y'all see Aaron, last Sunday we come out, it was Mother's Day, and I had, Selah overheard me. They listen, they are sponges. This is important. She overheard me tell Michael, it's Mother's Day, my mom's coming over, and so is my dad. Can you please make sure the lawn's mowed? He had to stay home from church because he was cooking. That was all I said. That's how I said it. It was kind. It was not ugly. All I said was, can you please make sure the lawn is mowed? That's all I said. We get out of the car, me and the children get here to church. Michael's at home, cooking for my mom. Get out of the car. I'm getting Sophie and Jude out of the car. Sloan and Selah walked ahead of me. Aaron's still wagging, is walking. Selah runs up to him. That's one of her teachers. She knows him. They start a conversation. I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm still getting Sophie and Judah. Aaron pulls back and comes up to me. He was like, hey, in all seriousness, hey, are you guys okay? And I was like, what did she say now? And he was like, well, she just asked if I cut things. And I was like, I'm sorry, she asked if you cut things? And he was like, she asked if I could come mow y'all's yard. Do y'all need some help? And I came unglued. Greatest attitude to come into Mother's Day worship service, right? But just so you know, they hear what you say, and they hear how you say it to your spouses.
So, as you're identifying these issues, from the no-fly zones, the hot buttons, the landmines, remember this, James 1, 19, 20. Be quick to listen and slow to speak. A trick that I've learned, the Lord's taught me, is if you shut up and just listen, people actually tell you what's going on in their head. And a lot of times, most people don't even actually understand why they feel the way they do or why they're doing what they do. But if you just sit and listen, you'll start seeing it. But we're too busy listening to respond rather than listening to understand that we actually miss the entirety of what they're saying. So, James 1, 19 through 20, quick to listen, slow to speak. When you do that, well, I'll read it to you. It says, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to come to anger, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Another one about this, remember we said choose to believe love chooses to believe the best? In that instance, you can choose to believe your spouse is upset, angry, lazy, whatever. Or you can say, no, I know that Megan truly loves me. She's not trying to bankrupt me and just spend every dime on stuff. She truly cares about our family. So it's an issue we need to work through. It's the powers and principalities of darkness. It's not the flesh. The flesh may be where it's manifesting, but you're actually fighting the powers and principalities of darkness. Then it changes your prayer in your mind. Lord, what can I do to help fight this stronghold that's in their life? And what can I do to help relieve the pressure that's on them so then they can fight it? And when you do that, you start opening up the airways for them, and you start providing that protection like Siri drew for your spouse, to start giving them air cover so they can breathe. Because a lot of times they can't breathe. Very few people don't know where their issues are. You know if you got an anger issue. You know if you got a spending issue. You know if you got a parenting, you don't like parenting, or you're obsessed with working out, or you got wandering eyes, or you know what your issues are. You know if you got a porn addiction. You know if you don't trust your spouse. You know where your issues are. Sometimes though, you just don't feel like you can breathe. And when your spouse can help provide that air cover, because when you realize you're not fighting here, you're fighting through the Holy Spirit, through God, it relieves that pressure, and then you can actually breathe. And then when you can breathe, you can get clear eyes. How many of you have been in chaos and you can't see the forest for the trees, right? Everything's just flying at you. And whenever you can breathe and you just get 5 feet above a tree line, you can see it. And you can see the field. You can see the battlefield of what you're actually fighting. And when you can see what you're actually fighting, you can make strategic decisions. It probably wasn't the smartest thing to give someone with a spending addiction all of the finances and not check on it. Right?
I was having a great time. Best 7 years of my life.
You're probably not gonna take someone that's like a recovering alcoholic and go sit at a bar and go start like a bar Bible study. Right? Somebody that struggles with let's say if you're struggling with wandering eyes, you're not going to go take your spouse to, like, let's say it's the husband struggles with, you're not going to take them to bikini days at the beach. Like, have some common sense, right? But being quick to listen and slow to speak. What they say, that God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so listen twice as much as you talk. The common core issues, if you're wondering what they may be: trust issues, signs of mistrust, over-checking. Like I said, right? You ask me to go do something, then you check on every single thing that I did. I'm like, well, at this point, you might as well just do it yourself. It's like a trust issue, right? Withholding, right? I'll give you all this, but I'm not going to give you this because I don't really trust you with all of me, which we do with the Lord all the time when we have strongholds. We'll give him what we want to give him, but there's certain areas we don't because we're more comfortable there. How do you rebuild trust? Transparency and accountability. You got a drinking problem, you get rid of anything that could be drinking. You got an eating problem. There's times that I'm still working on with Megan, letting her pack my lunch, so I make sure I have something that's a better option. Transparency. I don't go buy something without her seeing, or vice versa. She has all my passwords. She can see everything. If you've broken trust, it's going to take a while to rebuild it. Communication breakdowns. Explore unhealthy patterns. Stonewalling. So if somebody tries to come and you just constantly beat around the bush, you don't ever address the question or the answer, you don't ever get to it, you need to go there and sit down and have a conversation about it. Maybe it's a walk. If you got kids, after they lay down, you sit and just have 5 minutes and you talk about it and start hashing it out to figure out what's behind that wall that's hurt so much. Sometimes it's a previous relationship. Sometimes, this girl I dated, I had this one friend that was like, this girl I dated back here said that I was ugly and an idiot, and it's affected me in every relationship since. I don't let people really get close to me because no matter how much they say they think they're attracted to me, I don't believe them. It's from a girl in like 8th grade. I'm like, 8th grade girls or boys don't really know what they're saying. But we latch onto them because it hurts, and we have a defense mechanism. Almost all these stone walls come up from a defense mechanism of a hurt. We've already talked about so how do you break down communication barriers or communication breakdowns? How do you fix them? Active listening and then reflective communication, like we practiced at the end of last session. That feedback loop is vital. It's not good enough to sit here and try to have a conversation and take notes. I then have to communicate back to Megan what I believe she just said while I'm still learning how she actually talks. And this sounds really like you're maybe rolling your eyes. But when I communicate it back, it's like, well, babe, what I heard is you said blah, 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 blah. Is this accurate? She'd be like, no, I didn't even say that.
Do it with the towel. Do the example with the towel. This is what I heard you say, but I think this is what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
I heard you say this needs to be more organized, but
Yeah.
what you actually said was, I'm incompetent.
Yeah. That's what she said.
It is.
But when you have that feedback loop, you start learning, and then two, you learn your own mannerisms. Because no matter who you are and how effective you are at communicating, 100% of what you're thinking in your head doesn't come out your mouth.
Mine does.
Well,
Mine does.
some of them it needs to stop, and it needs to be processed first. But I mean, there's some thoughts that don't need to leave the head. You know, take every thought captive and hold it up to the word. If it's good, worthy, and then maybe consider.
I had a
saying,
friend, I'm not going to tell you what I said, but a friend of mine did tell me on Wednesday night, she was like, Megan, you're just really good at making people feel
awkwardly comfortable.
Yes. She said, you're really good at making people feel awkwardly comfortable. I don't know how I feel about that.
So, hang on, I got to get through a couple of
Okay,
more of
go
these
ahead.
before we run out of time.
Well, I have like 3 verses.
Another hot button one is unmet expectations and uncommunicated expectations. We had one early on, it was simple. Part of the reason why she got really stressed and was always wanting to be out of the house, I found out, was because we had a dirty garage. And the way the house was set up, we had to go through the garage to get to the car. So to her, it made her anxious every time she left the house, so then she would just stay gone. It was simple.
So I started going through the front door instead of going through the garage. I literally was like, take away the garage door opener. I don't want to go through the garage. I will go through the front door.
Well, it was like a double whammy because you had to go through the laundry room and then the garage. And then there's that towel. So then what is that? How do you fix unmet, uncommunicated expectations? Well, first of all, you communicate them if you know that they're there. If you don't know that they're there, what is that? That sounds funny. How do I not know that I have an expectation there? If you walk into a situation with your spouse and you start feeling anxious and you don't really know why, there's an expectation there that wasn't met. Like, if she comes home and I have people there and the house isn't picked up and I start seeing it on her face and she's doing this like, even though nothing was said, there's an expectation. You don't bring people over unless it's in a certain state. When you start seeing those, sometimes you find them by stepping on the landmine. Then you got to think and be like, I don't want to do that again. But when you start seeing those, I don't want to say triggers, but when we see those things, make a note. Because you know what all this is building? Is intimacy. Because it's intentionality that I'm studying my spouse. He's not here, so I can share it. You know one thing Siri told me, because we were walking through this with him at that point. Siri looked at me and said, Michael, how well do you study your wife? I said, what do you mean, Siri? I've been married to her for 5 years. He goes, no, how do you study your wife? So what do you mean? He goes, I've heard you can walk in the plant and you're just doing rounds, walking, and you have your eyes closed or whatever, and you can just hear something, I've heard, and you'll know there's something going on over here, this pump's not running right, there's a bearing going out, whatever. He goes, can you do that with your wife? And I said, honestly, no. He said, why? I said, because I don't study her like I study work. And he said, why? And this is getting to a core issue for most men. I said, because I don't get the respect at home that I get at work. The number one desire for men is to feel respected. The number one desire for women is to feel safe. And security and safety. If I'm undermining her security, I'm pushing her away. And unintentionally, I can actually push her away to somebody else. Now that's still her choice, but I'm contributing to it. And vice versa. If I'm constantly getting told that I'm incompetent and feeling disrespected, I'm just going to shut down. And if I catch myself just shutting down, that's another issue. If I'd rather talk to somebody at work, a female at work, about something than my wife, that's an issue. That's a flag. If she would rather talk to a male coworker about something than me, that's a red flag. If you start catching yourself, they just don't understand. I can never talk to them about this. That's a flag. That's a no-fly zone that needs to be looked at and figure out what's going on there. The scripture I have here is self-reflection. How do you find these? Psalms 139, 23 through 24. And so whenever you do this, like, make sure it's a long weekend before you pray this. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there are any grievous ways in me, and lead me in the way of everlasting. He's basically saying, Lord, look at my heart and show me what's not right, and tell me what I need to work on. So make sure it's a 4-day weekend, because you're going to need it. There's some prayers that you learn about, and then you're hesitant to ever do them, because you may not actually want to hear the answer. But that in itself is another form of pride that we can deal with. We got a class for that. We already talked about open communication. Jot down Ephesians 4:15 for that. Rather, speaking in truth and love, we are to grow up in every way into him who is the head and who is into Christ. And the big thing in this, when you're communicating and you're learning these, use I statements instead of you. What does that mean? I felt like this when it happened, and it made me feel like, or I felt like it set me up for failure in this, and this. Because what you're doing is, you're taking the burden off of blaming them and saying, but this is the repercussions. Because whether you meant to or not, you are responsible for the repercussions of your actions, whether it was an intended or unintended consequence. I'll say that again because it's actually really important. Whether you meant to or not, the outcomes and the effects of your actions, intended or not intended, you're still responsible for. So being mindful at the beginning of that will cut out probably half the things that we shouldn't be doing. Anything you want to share real quick before we go into we covered a lot of it. Okay. So, workshop. Do you want to read it or you want me to? Well, let's pray first and we'll get the workshop. Father, we thank you for this. We thank you for the opportunity to learn about core issues. To learn about things that become no-fly zones, because you don't operate no-fly zones. Every inch of us was bought by your son on the cross. And we should thankfully give that to you, because your plan is so much better. Your ways are higher than our ways. And that you've loved us so much, you gave us a manual to help look at, to help us teach us what those ways are. Father, we ask you invade us, search us. Like David wrote, search us. Look for anything that's not of you and bring it to the top so we can give it to you to rectify it and fix it. So that we can be found to be more like you, that people no longer see us, but they see reflections of you. We love you, Lord, and as we walk into this workshop, Lord, we ask that you just open our hearts and our minds and help us to just be transparent with ourselves. That we look in the mirror and that we don't forget what we look like, but that we just look in the mirror and we have an honest reflection of who we are so we can become more like you. We love you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.